Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. And since the last time we spoke with you, it feels like a complete cyclone has gone through State College, Pennsylvania. A lot to talk about. Penn State has seen over 30 players enter the transfer portal. They have seen a lot of additions to the Penn State roster as well as retaining some more. We also have news on the new defensive line coach as well as the new linebacker coach. All that and more in this week's episode. Let's get right into it. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Cory Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How you doing today, Shawn?
Doing good, Cory. Nice weather day out. Warm up here. And then just telling Cory before I got on, baby got her first round of vaccinations today. So you may or may not hear a baby in the background. I don't think you will because I just closed the door. But in case you're wondering, that's not me crying thinking about the Northwestern or UCLA games this year.
That's not all the Iowa State fans in Ames still crying?
No, I'd be crying too if I were them, not going to lie.
No doubt. No doubt. Welcome into the show, everybody. I put the over-under on this episode like an hour, 15 minutes because I just feel like it literally could probably go on forever. We obviously have a long time to talk about a lot of this, so we don't have to hit it all, I guess, immediately today. But a lot's going on. There's no doubt about that. And we have a lot to discuss. And unfortunately, we had some technical errors, and so I'm down to just one screen on my right side here as I produce today. So we'll try our best, but we are we're kind of limping into this one, so to speak. I thought a lot, Shawn, about how we were gonna go about this today. I mean, this is pretty much unprecedented, at least for Penn State. I mean, we haven't seen this much turnover, even if you go back to, after the 2011 and going into the 2012 season. That didn't even experience as much turnover as we've had. And, before we get into it, Shawn, I mean, do you think a lot of this kind of like I'm coming back, returning, re-signing, whatever you want to call that, do you think that's going to be the standard moving forward? Or do you think that is exaggerated because of obviously the coaching change? Do you think it's going to be this bad every year?
No. And the reason I say that is it's not this bad most places. I know a lot was made out of guy from USC, I think his name is Mayava, saying I'm coming back. But that could also, like, people, like, I think the thing that threw people off with that was he said he signed to come back. And that's something we're not used to seeing from college quarterbacks. But I don't know if he would have made a post like that if he wasn't being looked up by NFL teams. So, yeah, to answer the question, no, I think this is probably just this year. But, yeah, like you think of when Penn State had an exodus back then, a mass exodus after the sanctions were levied was considered like more than 10 guys. But keep in mind at the time when we lost those guys, we didn't have a transfer portal to go and pluck guys out of. I think we mentioned Stephen Bench more on the last two shows than we had in the past 3 years. But Stephen Bench was one of the guys we brought in, but really that's just because he was a quarterback that was available. Like there were still transfers then, but there wasn't like a market for them then either. It's just a completely different world now.
Yeah, a lot of the USC players specifically have said the re-signing thing more than any other program. So take that for what you will. It might just be a California thing, but they've definitely done that more than everybody else. But I do think that you're going to see obviously more moving forward of this, and it is kind of the way, kind of where we stand. Also, like, I don't really know how you would feel if you're an Iowa State fan, because yeah, they've gotten a couple additions, but they got an Oklahoma offensive lineman that has played in like 4 games in 3 years, and they got some FCS and D2 guys, but you're just like, is that how, call it the couple tiers below Penn State programs are going to have to somehow fill rosters. It's a very interesting and unsettling time in college football.
Yeah, because I have always been in the camp of, as far as transferring out, I don't think we should go back to the old way of doing things where you have to sit out a year. I think, but I do think there should be some rules to it, and that's the whole problem with college football today. There are no rules, and one of the things I've always been in favor of is you get one time to transfer, including if you're a grad transfer. Like if you're a grad transfer, you already transferred once. I don't think you'd be able to transfer again. With the exception if your coach leaves, because contrary to popular belief, you commit to the coach more so than the university. And I know a lot of people made a big deal about that with Franklin, Penn State. That's the truth most places. You're committing to the coaching staff first and foremost. So I've always believed that. However, you see a team get decimated the way Iowa State got decimated, and you're like, oh man, like they were down to like 17 guys at one point. And then you're like, are they going to be able to field the team next year? Are they just going to have to go all walk-ons for the most part? And these are the real questions you have to ask. So, I mean, it almost makes me question my own beliefs sometimes, the way things have gone down at Iowa State. And yes, Penn State has benefited, as we're going to get into, but is it good for the sport is the bigger question, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, yeah. The good for the sport question is one that I don't know if we'll ever figure out. I guess we'll find out eventually. Shawn, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna generally go through the additions first, because that's more fun. And if we end up dabbling into the subtractions, we will, and we'll get to them. And then I think we finish with the retains, because the retains, as we just found out 15 minutes ago, with Tysier Denmark just entering the portal officially.
Did he officially enter?
Yes. Like as soon as we started this. The retaining is not done. The retaining is going to continue, and as Penn State brings in more guys, other guys might say, "Okay, I'm going to leave now." And so we'll wrap up with those, because those maybe aren't as concrete. I would say the people that are coming, for the most part, are probably going to come. Although the one quarterback that committed to Nebraska just flipped, so that's not necessarily a guarantee. I think he flipped to Kentucky. So even there's flip season even in the transfer portal, as 24/7's Tyler Calvaruza put up yesterday. I want to start though with the coaching staff, Shawn. Penn State has their new defensive line coach since the last time we spoke. Ikaka Malloy, the UCLA defensive line coach, was a defensive coordinator in 2024 for UCLA. He was actually a Broyles nominee there as well. We talked a lot about how young this coaching staff is. Malloy is a complete opposite of that. Older guy, relatively, played linebacker at Washington, West Coast guy, is going to bring in and already has brought in players that Penn State typically doesn't get along the West Coast and also Hawaii as well. So very familiar with D'Anton Lynn, obviously, when Lynn was at UCLA, and already has helped not just has already helped out kind of twice in the transfer portal, at least one time for sure, and potentially twice already. So what are your thoughts on adding Malloy?
Yeah, it makes sense when you consider D'Anton Lynn as the defensive coordinator. And he has coached under D'Anton Lynn before, so they do have that prior history. But yeah, first time on the East Coast. That's the first thing that really sticks out. Could open up some more opportunity, more more places that we could pull talent from. He is Polynesian, so he has that connection. He has, and then you think of the guys that he has developed. Vita Vea, right at the top of the list, one of the premier defensive tackles in the NFL. Penn State actually played him in the Fiesta Bowl not too long ago when he was a Washington Husky. And then he developed guys at UCLA as well. Sure, this past year at UCLA didn't really work out as defense coordinator, but that's also not what we're hiring him for. So I think his record speaks for itself, and it could open up new places for us to recruit from. So I'm all for it. And I had said on here before, I want more of the graybeards, more guys that have had experience as a very young staff, which I'm cool with. But I think you do need that mix in there of experience, and we have him. And it's also been announced that Terry Smith is going to be the cornerbacks coach as well as associate head coach, which I think we kind of thought would happen, but it has been confirmed.
Yeah, the longer that kind of dragged out, the less I got confident that was going to happen. But yeah, that's official. Not official yet, but it appears Penn State is trying to bring in Christian Smith, current defensive line coach for Northwestern. Bring him as an assistant defensive line coach, and he would really primarily focus on the defensive end. I believe that's according to Chris Hummer. And so that would be relatively big news, getting somebody to really take a demotion in a way. But Smith did play linebacker at Toledo when Matt Campbell was there. So there's some connections there to bring him back in that regard. We'll see what happens there. And Anto Saka is a defensive end that also went into the portal right after Smith was sort of targeted, but he has since visited Texas A&M with a non-contact clause. So we'll see what happens there with Saka. But regardless, Christian Smith appears to be coming to Happy Valley. That is not official. Malloy is official, as well as linebacker coach Tyson Vet from Videt from Cincinnati, who's a defensive coordinator there at Cincinnati. But he was also the linebackers coach with Matt Campbell at Iowa State from 2016 to 2023. So if you're wondering, because I kind of wondered at first, I was like, oh, wow, they went and got a defensive coordinator. Like, how are they able to convince him of that? Well, he's been with Matt Campbell for quite some time. So Tyson officially takes the linebackers coach position, but Dan Connor has officially, this was announced today, is officially being retained by the staff in an assistant linebacking role. So they were able to retain him there, and they're able to hold on and go get Tyson Videt as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to hang on to a guy like Dan Connor. I have contended all year, even when it was unpopular, that Dan Connor did a good job this season, even though the linebackers might not have always showed it. I more put that on James Franklin for not recruiting the position well enough, and Jim Knowles for the scheme and asking too much from guys that really couldn't handle that, and what was being demanded. But I thought Tony Rojas had his best year with Dan Connor. Amari Campbell, see you later. He also had his best year with Dan Connor. So, and Alex Tash has developed. So I think there's a lot of good that he did this year. So I'm happy he's staying on. And then, yeah, we're getting a guy that's been a defense coordinator before. And this is going to be a theme here, a guy that Matt Campbell trusts. And trust seems to be very big with Coach Campbell. So because, you look at the players we brought in and the staff that he's put together.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, as I kind of walk back what I said, I think the best way to maybe go about that is by position group. And we don't have to go by like outside linebacker, inside linebacker, or offensive guard, tackle, but can kind of group them together, secondary, etc. But I think just that will make it more easy to talk about all these additions and subtractions and retainments all at the same time relative to that position group. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about also the retaining of special teams coach Justin Lustig. That's sort of completely gone under the radar. The fact that James Franklin wasn't able to bring him along, I thought was noticeable. I also don't think Matt Campbell actually had a dedicated special teams coordinator / coach at Iowa State. And so sort of maybe a change in philosophy there, recognizing how good Justin Lustig was. But I think this was a huge, we talked probably more about special teams than a lot of people, but I think this is a huge retainment that has really not been discussed a whole lot by anybody, and I think it's massive.
Yeah, I think so too. Lustig. One thing I'll give James Franklin, as bad as he was finding an offensive coordinator, he was pretty damn good at finding special teams coordinators, and I thought Lustig was his best one. In a year full of disappointments, special teams wasn't one. We have maybe the best kicker in America last year. I knock on wood. I don't like jinx kickers going into this next year, but last year, gotta give him his flowers. Gabe improved as a punter. We covered kicks well. We blocked kick. We denied Dennis Sutton, tied Jack Ham for the punt block record. So any problems you have with this team this year, none of them should be none of your complaints should be pointed at Justin Lustig. So this is a big time retainment that I really didn't expect, because I thought if he didn't go with Franklin, he'd probably go somewhere else, or maybe he was a former coach, I believe, in the D2 level or FCS level. I thought he might get a head coaching job somewhere.
Well, they're able to retain him. This is very fresh news from Ryan Snyder over on 3. They are officially going to be losing Kenny Sanders. Long time. I say long time. There's a little bit of a split where he was at Oregon, but basically had been at Penn State for almost 10 years. A little shy of that, but as one of the mainstays in the recruiting department, from McDonough High School, helped create that pipeline. Although I'd argue, there's still some misses there. There's still some really good players that came out of there that they didn't get. But for the most part, McDonough was a direct pipeline to Penn State, and he built that. That's a big loss. We'll be curious to see if he ends up at Virginia Tech. Again, he had at least one time gone out on his own. He went to Oregon. So I don't know if it's a guarantee that he does that, but he's going to be very highly sought after. He's a big time, not just obviously recruiter, but big time mainstay in the whole recruiting department from a leadership perspective, from the ties and connections that he has. That's a big loss for Penn State.
Yeah, like you said, long time guy here. Outside of that little hiatus he had away from us. And yeah, like you talk about culture builders, he was one of them. Now, look, Matt Campbell's bringing in a whole new culture, so I'm sure he's got somebody in mind to replace him. But yeah, Kenny Sanders has helped. You ask pretty much anybody around the program in the last 10 years, they always bring him up when discussing recruiting and how well he did at his job. I am happy we're retaining Alan Zamitis, who worked hand in hand the last couple of years with Kenny Sanders, but still, you never like to see good people walk out the door.
Shawn, if you wouldn't mind, just bring your camera down just a smidgen for me. All right.
That'll be on a t-shirt soon.
Okay, I was just thinking that actually. that might need to go on a t-shirt. So, Shawn, since I threw a kind of curveball at you, let's just go through position groups and we'll talk about additions and subtractions. And let's start with quarterback so we don't bury the lead more than we need to. Penn State officially brings in Rocco Becht, which, by the way, I got a text message from somebody, and I don't think she would care if I said it, but I'm not going to disclose her name just in case. Where I forget the exact word she used, but she basically said, if Penn State doesn't get Rocco Becht after what you said on the episode last week, you're going to have to eat crow or something on the show. And fair enough. I was very confident in that, and it kind of worked out exactly how I thought it was going to work out. But Penn State officially brings in former Iowa State quarterback Rocco Becht, winningest quarterback heading into the 2026 season. I think he's top 5 in yards and touchdowns. I think he might be second in yards in total touchdowns or passing touchdowns, returning as well. And had, I think, 9 interceptions the last 2 years. Has had a couple injuries. The non-throwing labrum shoulder was repaired this offseason. But the guy you just mentioned it, the guy that Matt Campbell can trust and maybe bridge that gap from one year into the next, Rocco Becht is coming to Penn State.
Yeah. Corey was courageous in his prediction that Rocco Becht would be coming to Penn State, and he proved to be correct. So yeah, like Corey said, the big thing here is Matt Campbell does trust Rocco Becht, and Rocco Becht has had a successful career. Bit of a down year last year that was primarily due to the labrum injury in his left on his left shoulder. But you look at his career, and he's very highly decorated. I mean, he took his team to the Big 12 championship game just 2 years ago. And there's some Twitter rumblings that Lane Kiffin was also interested in him. Going to go down there with Lane, and it's coming here to Happy Valley. And then, and we'll get to Grunk. But when you think about, I think you have to consider what Matt Campbell wants to do this year. And I think the old days of you have 3 or 4 years to figure it out are largely over. For better or for worse, because I don't necessarily love that world. But it's just the way it is. So I think this is a move that Matt Campbell made because he wants to try to win this year and get as many wins as he possibly can and hopefully make a playoff run. Do I know if that'll happen? I don't know. I see how the rest of the team ends up, but I think that's his thinking here.
Yeah, and I think it's someone you can rely on either way, right? I mean, somebody you can trust, somebody you don't have to build or teach a whole new system to. Not that the systems are drastically different, but you're speaking apples and that person's speaking apples, and that at least gets you further ahead than you would be if you had to start over with Ethan Grunkemeyer or somebody else. So I think Penn State fans are going to love Rocco Becht. I think he's got some tenacity to him. Pete Thamel had a free article on ESPN, which in the year of our Lord 2026, having a free article anywhere seems almost outrageous. So I would highly recommend you check that article out. But he basically talks about how he just wants to win and doesn't care about his stats. And I think a lot of people always wanted to give the Bo Prabula Trace McSorley comparison because it was simple based off of all the numberage and all that. But if you really wanted to compare Rocco Becht to somebody from a, I guess, tenacity perspective or competitive perspective, I think he does fit the Trace McSorley mold quite well. He maybe throws a couple of interceptions that he shouldn't because he's pressing a little bit much. But he's no problem, has moxie, but he has no problem kind of making up as he needs to in a broken down pocket as well. So I think Penn State fans are going to be excited for, let's just say, the composure in the pocket and his pocket presence and how he kind of handles himself. I think that's going to be something that Penn State fans maybe have missed from previous, or really just the last quarterback.
Yeah, as you were going through the list of things, I was like, I know a guy that doesn't have any of that.
Yeah.
Has other things he does well, but none of that stuff. But yeah, I wonder if Matty Fresh will make a Rocco Becht song go viral like he did the Trace McSorley song.
I don't know. I think Matty Fresh might be a Northwestern fan since they hired, or a Michigan State fan since they hired Pat Fitzgerald, but I haven't heard anything from him lately. I do want to talk about Alex Mansky, the other quarterback that came from Iowa State, a freshman, played in a couple games, redshirted though, was able to hold on to that. Part of the 2025 class, and was relatively a 3-star-ish guy, depending on where you looked, but pretty highly thought of. Top 10 guy in Iowa, 6'3", 225. So he's got a good build to him. Landon Tangwall did a really good breakdown. I would recommend you check that out. But in a way, if you look at this quarterback room, you got Rocco, Alex, and then you got Casey Evans and Peyton Falzone coming in the recruiting class as well. Brand new recruiting class. We'll talk about Ethan Grunkemeyer in a second, but you feel pretty good. They still might go get maybe one more if something falls right in their lap that would work perfectly to maybe bridge that gap completely from Rocco to these 3 younger guys. But all in all, like, that position group is coming together probably better than some other position groups.
I'd say so. Yeah, I was happy to get Mansky because one of the things with Grunk that intrigued me was we could get 3 years with him. Well, now we're in a position that we could have Rocco Becht start this year, and then Mansky conceivably could start the next couple of years. So we're going to be in a similar spot. Um, it's funny that Rocco Becht is really our first and only quote unquote rental quarterback, and it looks like he will be for the only one for the foreseeable future. Because I think Campbell has a similar philosophy of not really wanting to bring in a guy for 1 year, like a rental type quarterback.
Which that quarterback thing in general is going to be the interesting one because a lot of people are going to that strategy moving forward. Uh, we'll talk about running backs in a second, but before we do this, before we get to running backs, we're going to finish with the quarterbacks. But before we do that, just some more breaking news. Running back Dupree Wallace Coleman has officially entered the transfer portal as well. That just happened a couple minutes ago. We'll get to running backs in a second, but before we do, Ethan Grunkemeyer has officially gone to Virginia Tech. Um, Not overly surprising. There was a piece of me in the back of my head that was like, maybe they're able to hold on to him and but don't blame Ethan Grunkemeyer for entering the portal, and then I think he made a mistake in choosing Virginia Tech as fast as he did because I'm guessing he probably gave them a friendly friends and family discount, and I think he probably just again this is all speculation. I think he could have probably got some more money from somebody else. I think look at some of these other quarterbacks. The guy from Notre Dame who just went to Kentucky that flipped from Nebraska, he's better than that jabroni. So anyway, I think I think he maybe sold himself a little bit short, but you also, if you know, you know, and he's going to go to Virginia Tech, and he's going to be with a familiar head coach and a familiar offensive coordinator, and it could be a good situation for him. Obviously, Sean, you got to wonder, like, will he regress like pretty much every other James Franklin quarterback um, that has gone through Franklin's tenure at Penn State, at least?
Yeah, you do have to wonder that, except Sean Clifford. But yeah, every other quarterback. I mean, you look at Drew Allard. That his worst year was his senior year. And that ain't the way it's supposed to go, my friends. And it surprised me a little bit that Ethan Grunkemeyer had a front row seat to that, and then had a front row seat to Terry Smith. And he still, and like I totally understand, I'm not staying at Penn State. I understand not wanting to be a backup, but I am a little surprised they went to Virginia Tech unless he got a big sum of money. Then it makes a little bit more sense. But no hard feelings at all to Grunk. I'm appreciative of what he did this year. And yeah, that's really it.
So just to round out the rest of the quarterbacks there, real quick. And by the way, I want to give a shout out before I forget to at PSU Tracker. They got a good a Twitter profile there that is basically letting you know every single player that is followed by all the assistant coaches and GMs and whatnot. And so I would highly recommend you follow them there. They also have a website, and I don't know who created it. I thought this guy's I don't know who the guy's name was that maybe potentially created it, but they also have a website that tracks it very well. I would say probably just as good as anywhere you might be paying to get that information. So I want to give them a shout out because they have that up for free, and it's pretty substantial and it's super helpful. So anyway, I would recommend you check those guys out if you haven't already. Real quick, Jack Lambert has not announced anything, just FYI. But Jackson Smolik and Beckham Kritza have also entered the transfer portal as well, just to wrap that up. I think, I don't know who said it, but it would be interesting to see if Jackson Smolik considers going to Iowa State and going back home, relatively speaking.
Would actually make some sense. Yeah, I'll always remember Jackson Smolik being shoehorned into a game by Andy Kotelnicki. He's not the only one.
All right, let's go to running backs. I just announced that Dupree Coleman is hitting the portal. Also in the portal is Cam Wallace and Corey Smith. And so little bit upsetting. Cam Wallace is a guy who just his knee injury was brutal. Whatever that was, 2 years ago now, technically. And I really think he can be very exciting. He obviously had a very nice play early in the year this year. Corey Smith didn't have a great pinstripe bowl, but I think has plenty of talent as well, and I'm excited to see where he ends up going. And then we have not heard from Tiki Hayes yet. And then most notably, though, Shawn, Penn State does retain at this moment Quentin Martin Jr., and they also bring in Carson Hansen, someone you talked about last week from Iowa State.
Yeah, and I actually think their styles complement each other quite well. Quentin Martin more, we really didn't see it much in the Pinstripe Bowl. He is more of a receiving back. Carson Hansen is more, one cut, good vision back. So I think they complement each other well. Really want to get Tiki Hayes back. I think he could play. He showed a little bit of that in the Pinstripe Bowl. He's more of a tough runner, but he's been pretty radio silent right now. Another guy that Penn State hasn't gotten yet, but was visiting a couple of days ago was James Peoples from Ohio State, who was a reserve running back, still had over 500 yards for the Buckeyes this past year. So I would like to bring him in. And then we're also looking at a running back from South Dakota, I believe, as well, who led the FCS in rushing yards. So we're still going after some guys, and it kind of makes sense because right now the only two guys that we know for sure are coming. And with this transfer portal, as you've seen with Tysier Denmark and Dejon Lane today, everything's still pretty tentative, even if a guy says he's coming back. I guess we have decommitments now from guys on our own roster, which is something we haven't been accustomed to. So
did you mention Mekhi Frazier from Michigan State?
I did not.
Yeah, so another running back that I believe was here today, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So Campbell's staying active in the running back market. And like I said, it makes a lot of sense because right now we only have two that we know are going to be playing for us right now. Really hope we could hang on to Tiki Hayes.
Yeah, and you're right. It was South Dakota. L.J. Phillips Jr., 1,900 yards and 19 touchdowns. Only reason he ended up in the FCS was he tore his ACL in high school. 5'9", 225. That's according to Black Shoes Diary. So thank you guys for that. All right. I agree with you. I think Tiki Hayes is an interesting one. I have a bad feeling about that. Just not to put bad, juju in the air, but also, again, if they take Phillips, do they take also Peoples? So you add 2 or 3, right? And I get it's a running back room, so you kind of need to have at least 4 or 5 guys. But how does that make a Tiki Hayes feel or a Cam Wallace feel? Or I kind of get it to a certain degree. So I'd be very curious to see how that all kind of works out. But they would probably still take at least one more running back, if not. They want 2 more, whether it's retaining Hayes and then getting 1 more, or at the bare minimum, they might even want 3, including all of that. So I'd be very curious how that ends up.
Yeah, I mean, you want at least 4, at the very least, because running backs, they take a lot of hits and they can go down quick, as we saw back in the COVID year, where we lost 2 running backs in the same day, and then we're down our 3rd string running back. So life comes at you fast when you're when you have life comes at you fast with the running back room. So I do hope that they're able to get to either, like you said, retain Hayes, add another or 2, or just add 2 more. I think that's the ideal situation right now.
Perfect. Well, let's move on to wide receiver then, shall we?
This is fullback.
I don't know
either.
A lot of people were excited about that, given Matt Campbell's background, but haven't heard anything yet there. Wide receiver: Aaron Enterline, portal. Anthony Ivy, portal. Jeff Exeter Jr., portal. Josiah Brown, portal. Caden Saunders, portal. As of like 20 minutes ago, Tyseer Denmark, who said he was coming back, now portal. So that's a lot there. We have not heard from Ethan Black, as well as Lyric Samuel or Matt Outen as of 7 p.m. on January 6th. So waiting to hear from a couple there. More interestingly, they are also bringing in the recruiting world. Yes, they still recruit people. Josiah Sayas, which is you could kind of argue was a flip, as well as Ben Whitmer, which is one that we discussed quite a bit from James Madison. And then, and Amarian Jackson technically is an incoming recruit too, another kind of flip wide receiver there. They're also bringing in 3 transfers from Iowa State. Caron Brookins, Brett Eskildson, and Chase Soul. And Soul and Eskildson are kind of the go-to guys that played a lot at Iowa State. Will have junior eligibility there, and are kind of the ones that you would look at to play a lot of meaningful snaps. A lot of the other guys are freshmen, and we just don't know a whole bunch yet. But the wide receiver room, and I didn't mention this, Shawn, did I? But obviously, they're going to be bringing back Kobe Howard as well, not to completely bury the lead there. I think you're going to get me on that if I did mention that. So right now, you're looking at that room. Yeah, it's Kobe Howard, Chase Soul, Brett Eskildson, and then a bunch of potential unknowns. I don't want to say unknowns, but up for grab positions after that.
Yeah, and I don't think Penn State is done with receiver either. I think they would still like to bring in, like I know, for example, Samson Gash, who you old school guys will remember. His father, Sam Gash, played at Penn State, was a Michigan State commit, decommitted, and now is choosing between Penn State and Georgia, which is a hell of a recruiting battle. It would be big for Matt Campbell to win that. And I believe he's going to be making a visit soon to Penn State. So you have a freshman, and then a name that's been floated is Noah Rogers from NC State. Also, Mylan Graham from Ohio State has entered the portal. Penn State was in his recruitment pretty intimately back during the Franklin era. So Penn State's not done there. I thought it was huge to get Kobe Howard back. I think he was on everybody's list of you could only have 5 guys from the previous regime. Who do you want? And I think everybody had Kobe Howard on their list. So I think as it stands right now, Howard, Eskildson, and Soul are probably your 3 top receivers. And then, like you said, just a lot of question marks after there. I think a guy like Matt Outen could be good. If Penn State's able to retain him. I also think the same thing about Lyric Samuel. But
I did forget one more too that you didn't remember. Peter Gonzalez. Yep.
Yeah, and Gonzalez, like his big issue since high school has been, can he be healthy? And you still see almost every week on the injury list, Peter Gonzalez is there. So if he could stay healthy, I still think the guy's got talent. But you got to hope that you could get some depth there.
Did you mention Rico Scott? I just want to make sure.
I haven't. So Rico Scott went to Alabama, also in the portal. So we could bring him in. I wouldn't shock me at all if Penn State's had contact with him as well.
Would you take Rico Scott over Tyseer Denmark? Would you feel good about that trade?
But they're about the same guy.
Yeah.
I do think Denmark has more talent for whatever that's worth. But the problem with Denmark has never been his talent.
All right. Well, let's not get too bogged down because we'll go to tight ends next, which has been a very active position group. Again, into the portal goes Matt Henderson, Luke Reynolds, who is, again, I think maybe hopefully taking more of a peek because he hasn't announced anywhere yet, but he's leaning Virginia Tech. Joey Schlaffer was one of the first people into the portal before the season was even over, as well as 5-star true freshman Andrew Olish, who that one stings a little bit. It was a big get when it did happen. A flip from Michigan, if I remember that correctly. And didn't do anything, and it makes you wonder a little bit that like why or how far back in the depth chart he was. But now looking into what is returning and what is now coming in from Iowa State, it still feels like maybe he would have been pretty far back in the depth chart. Shawn, biggest thing, Andrew Rappleyea returning, announcing his returning, and he's been pretty active on social media and keeping other people as well. Then Brian Kortorvik as well as Finn Fermenik are also returning. I want you to talk about them a little bit, John, because I think you have some interesting thoughts into maybe they're higher in the depth chart than you realize. And then the big name, Ben Brahmer from Iowa State, number one tight end in the portal coming. I mean, this guy probably got a friends and family. We probably got a friends and family discount for him to come to Penn State from Iowa State. He was going to be sought after by everybody. I think he was, I don't know if it was officially tight end of the year or not in the Big 12, but he led the tight ends in all statistics in the Big 12. But then also bringing in Gabe Burkle, both tight ends, according to T. Frank over at On3, a little bit more receiving. And so, or I should say, quote T. Frank on this and saying that Rappleyea is a better blocker than both of those guys. And so you're still maybe wondering if they want to go get another true blocking tight end, so to speak, if that exists out there, which is not something that Andrew Olish was. And so if he was going to try to see the field, he was probably third at best, if not fourth on the receiving depth chart, and he wasn't making up for that with his blocking.
Yeah, the thing with Olish has always been he's a bit of a project, but he's talented, similar to Luke Reynolds, who also transferred out to Virginia Tech, joining James Franklin and his position coach Ty Howell down there. But Olish was even further behind as far as blocking goes. So a guy like Ben Kortovich, very conceivable. He was seen as a more complete tight end out of high school. May have just passed him out on the depth chart. And is it possible Olish could have passed him out again? Sure. But, that's kind of where we're at right now. But yeah, the biggest thing was getting Rappleyea back. And he had announced, he had kind of tipped his hand a little bit before the bowl game that he was coming back. So this has been pretty well known for a while. And then Ben Brahmer, I think, is going to complement him really, really well. To me, those are your two top tight ends that we're going to roll with. I have a feeling they may be done at tight end, but if the right guy comes available, you never know. But I feel pretty comfortable with this group as it is. But if there's somebody comes available, maybe even just a guy from a lower level school that could just add depth, I'm sure Matt Campbell may not turn his nose at it either.
Right on. All right. We'll continue this by moving on to the offensive line. Real quick, if you haven't already, make sure you've liked the video and subscribed if you're watching live on YouTube or if you're watching or listening in podcast platform. We'd appreciate that. All right, offensive line, Shawn. This is where it gets a little bit messy pretty quickly. Let's take this one piece at a time, if you will. Let's start with the declarations for the NFL. Vega Ione officially declaring for the NFL. Now let's go to those that have entered the portal. Alex Grunkemeyer has officially landed at Liberty. Brady O'Hara, I think, entered maybe today or yesterday. Egan Boyer officially has landed at Florida. Javen Williams has also entered the portal. And then I believe TJ Shannon has officially landed at Florida as well. I think that came out today. So those are all the offensive linemen that have either in the portal or have gone somewhere else. A decent amount of them have not made decisions yet. Probably the one that is most notable right now, or two of them really. A lot of them from the 2025 class. But Michael Trotman III has not announced it. I guess he technically from the 2024 class. But also Donnie Harbor from the 2024 class has not announced himself either. Caleb Brewer, another one that hasn't. Shawn, I know you're excited about this, so I'll turn it over to you on this one. Someone that has announced that they are returning that I think you will appreciate tremendously. And that's Malachi Goodman, who just announced, I think, just a day or two ago.
That was good, man.
I tweeted that, and people are not going to think that you tweeted it because it both fit our humor quite well there. I mean, there's a lot of good names that are coming back. Yes. I mean, you look at the offensive line, you could argue, Shawn, this is the best list of any position group that's coming back. Anthony Dunca, obviously massive. Chimney Ono, Cooper Cousins, Dom Ruley, Garrett Sexton, Owen Alicini. Like, those are some really good names that Penn State is getting back.
Yeah. It's funny to mention Dominic Ruley in that, but Dominic Ruley was the highest graded PFF player in the bowl game, in a bowl game that we played pretty well in the offensive line. But yeah, Cooper Cousins is another guy that's been very vocal on social media and seems to be stepping up as a leader in the locker room coming back. And then Chimney Ono, who I think Steve Jones mentioned on his one show that he's one of the guys that he could see the light bulb coming on during the bowl practice. And Garrett Sexton, who a lot of people are still very excited about, Malachi Goodman, who was a 5-star player just last season. So there's a lot of good and young talent here that we have coming back to go with what we got coming in from Iowa State. Right now, I believe everybody coming from Iowa State or coming in on the offensive line is from Iowa State. Some of them are fresh, and I believe they're mostly freshmen or guys that were just freshmen this past year, so they'll have sophomore eligibility. So a lot there to be excited about. I think the biggest loss is actually Egan Boyer. I think he's going to end up being a really, really good player. I know Shanahan did a lot of good things for us this year too. But I'm more, as far as like upside goes, I'm more bummed about losing Egan Boyer.
Yeah, the only other one that really excited about that is a little bit more experience is Trevor Burr. He's an offensive lineman, probably one of the bigger gets that they got.
Yeah,
he's going to make an immediate impact. He's going to start somewhere pretty much right away. I want to say his name just because it was today, but Via Ikakola just announced today. I just wanted to say his name because I took some time to get it down. But he's pretty good offensive lineman. He was the 15th best kind of tackle in 24/7 Sports. He was way lower than that, but 15th best player in Utah, 3-star guy. But Shawn, 355 pounds, just massive. And if you go through and look at any of these guys, Kuakua, Will Tompkins, a lot of these guys are bigger guys. The tackles that they're getting are big guys.
Yeah, Matt Campbell definitely has a type both on the offensive and defensive line, and that's big in a way that previous years haven't. We've got more so gone for the athletes, which, hey, you could win either way. But he definitely likes some girth. On the offensive and defensive.
Who doesn't?
I'm saying. So on the offensive and defensive lines, he definitely likes something a little more girthy, and long. So,
all right, Shawn, we might have to cut you off after that one. 2 offensive linemen they did flip. They did flip as well. Mason Banhauer and Pete Eglitis as well. Those 2 are coming in the offensive line and in the 2026 class, which I believe is probably pretty close to 15 now, if I had to take a wild guess. Don't have it right in front of me, but I can probably pull it up pretty quickly. 2026 class.
Yeah,
can I do it without transfers anymore? I don't know if it lets me do that anymore.
Hold on, let me see. I know we're very close.
Okay. Incoming transfers is 24. Outgoing is 40.
Got some breaking news here.
Uh-oh.
James Peoples, Ohio State running back we just mentioned, is committed to Penn State.
There we go. That's big time.
Yep. As soon as I went on the 24/7 site, it's right at the top of the page, according to Tyler Calvaruzzo. So there we go.
Yeah, 5'10", 209-pound running back, 2 years of eligibility. He says, quote, "God has spoken." Let's do it, Nittany Nation.
There we go. Yeah, 12 commits right now. From high school.
So big time news there. Penn State gets another running back, James Peoples. So they lose Jabri Coleman, and within 20 minutes they get James Peoples from Ohio State. The Ohio State. How dare I? 2 years of eligibility left from Texas originally. Out of high school, he was a 4-star guy, 93.87 rating, top 10 in his position, and top 120 nationally, depending on where you look. So big get there. Played 5A ball in Texas, for what that's worth. Had over 2,000 yards and 31 touchdowns in his high school senior season, 2022.
Yeah, but just want to correct something I said earlier. He had over. I said he had over 500 yards. So he had 344 yards, average 5.6 yards a carry at Ohio State. And you're welcome
for that correction. All right. With that being said, this is probably going to be the most extensive one that we have to get to today, and that is the defensive line. Let's start with defensive tackle first, Shawn. And let's start again with those that are leaving. And so Caleb Artest, Owen Wafel, Randy Pabrika, or just kidding, Adrika, Sam Safaya, and Alex Gilliam all into the portal. Gilliam, obviously, Shawn, a big loss there.
Yeah, Gilliam was somebody that this staff definitely wanted to retain. And keep in mind, guys, there are some guys leaving that the staff didn't necessarily want. Xavier Gilliam was one of them that they absolutely wanted to keep. So big loss, especially like when you look at what we have right now at defensive tackle. Right now we have 6 guys, and it's unclear how many of them are really good. I think Ty Blanding showed some good things for sure.
He's like the most experienced one.
Yeah, like it's kind of scary but speaking of experience, one guy we do have coming in that has experience is Keanu Williams. And he played at UCLA, both under D'Anton Lynn and our new defensive line coach. And, we talk about wanting to get some hosses in here. He is a hoss. So big dude. Yep. Big dude takes up, honestly, the type of defensive tackle that Jim Knowles would love. I don't know why we weren't after guys like this last year in the transfer portal when we knew Jim Knowles was going to be our defensive coordinator, because he's going to be able to clog up space and let guys like Tony Rojas go and eat. So I really he might be my favorite. He's definitely my favorite non-Iowa State edition. Might be right up there with my favorite additions on the defensive side of the ball, because I think he could do some really good things for us this year.
Yeah, but we talked a little bit. A 6-year guy, wasn't even sure he was going to come back and play more ball. And I think from a leadership perspective in a room like that with a bunch of young guys, like that's big time, right? That's leadership that you need. And that's something that we haven't talked a lot about. I know some people are going to be underwhelmed by how many 3 stars Penn State's picking up. And look, I think that is being I think a lot of people are saying, oh, but they're tough and they're going to be – I think we need to calm down a little bit on like that and the right fit and all that. Like if you can still get some more 4 and 5 star guys, you need to go do that. But at the same time, you also are retaining a lot of 4 and 5 star guys. And so if you can sprinkle in the right kind of guys to get the culture right, that's also very important. And that doesn't just have to come from Iowa State. And I think Keanu Williams fits that perfectly. He was also the first non-Iowa State transfer that committed to Penn State so far.
Yes. Yeah, and look, I'm not going to say I'm concerned with the talent level. Would I like to have 4 or 5 star guys? Of course. But you also have to realize this, no matter how you look at it, is a transition year. And the transition might go awesome. Like we might make the playoff. But there could also be some tough moments sprinkled in there, because Matt Campbell's still building this and getting some Iowa State guys, getting guys he's familiar with. That's all part of it. I will say he's taken more than the average Bear from his old school, for sure. But keep in mind, Iowa State, they didn't have much of an NIL program. So the only thing really holding them there was Matt Campbell. So
Right.
they and a bunch of their players hit the portal. Keep in mind, Matt Campbell didn't take all of them. Like there are a lot of guys that Matt Campbell had to say no to, that probably wanted to come here, because believe me, and that free article that you mentioned, it was either it was Rocco Becht that mentioned he seemed different in that and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, that he knew we're trying to win a national championship here. And that's just not that's not the same language he was speaking at Iowa State.
Yeah. Do you want to do the honors? I know you love this name, the Oklahoma State defensive tackle transfer.
Oh, yes. It's a great name, and actually was pretty solid this past year, especially for a freshman. Armstrong Nodeem. That's my best attempt. And like I said, came from Oklahoma State, and had a few tackles this year and had a sack. I know Cowboys had a tough year, but seemed to be a diamond in the rough for them for sure. By the way, Corey, speaking of them, I think Oklahoma State's going to be a good team this year.
I think they're going to be better. Yeah.
Call my shot. I think
they got to be better, right?
Yeah, they have a good quarterback coming in, good offensive mind. I still think that was that might have been the best hire of the cycle, right up there with the best.
Returning also, we mentioned Blanding. How about your guy Liam Andrews? This is a good time for him to start doing some things.
That's right.
And then also DeAndre Cook. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, DeAndre Cook hopefully can stay away from scooters.
Just gonna leave that there. But yeah, Liam Andrews. I'm happy that he is returning. Guy still has a lot of talent. I still think he could play. He was as Corey reminds us occasionally, he was my favorite guy in the recruiting class.
Occasionally.
And still think he could play. It's just he needs to stay healthy first, because your best ability is availability. But I have not sold any of my Liam Andrews stock. And if he could stay healthy, it's now or never. He's got to be able to at least crack this lineup, because I do think we're going to add another defensive tackle, maybe two. But he's got to be able to get in the rotation this season. And DeAndre Cook, keeping him, also important. And because you just look at the departures. I know we had guys like Caleb Artis leave as well. I'm not sure how much he was really going to factor in here. But you need bodies. And if we could just have the defensive tackle, you want 4 or 5 guys that could play. And right now we have 2, maybe 2.5. So still got to either develop another guy or two, or bring in a couple, 1 or 2 more sure things.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, Shawn, defensive end is going to get a little brutal here, I think, but we're going to get through it together. Announced into the portal. Obviously, Chaz Coleman, he's visiting Ohio State as we speak. I hope that's going terribly for him. Freshman Cortez Harris and freshman Daniel Jennings have entered the portal. Cortez Harris, I think, entered today. I think Daniel Jennings has officially announced that he's going to Virginia Tech officially already.
He has.
Yep. Jalen Harvey into the portal, and then I think he landed at North Carolina.
Yep.
And then Zariah Fisher as well entered the portal. I don't think I heard anything for Fisher.
I don't think he's committed to anywhere yet.
Okay. So those are
play next year. Like, did he get approved for that yet? Or
I don't know if it's officially approved.
He's been around for like 20 years now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if it's official there. All right. Announced that they're coming back. Mason Robinson, Max Granville, and Yvonne Kamaju, which I'm going to bury the lead for a second. Mason Robinson was a surprise to me to a certain degree. I liked Mason Robinson coming out of high school. I thought he was a project, obviously, but I really liked what, from a stature perspective, I thought he could do something. So that was surprising to me. He's obviously a little bit older, but I'm going to be very curious to see if he can kind of put things together. It was nice to see Mason Robinson come back and maybe one day can make me look like a genius. The obvious massive ones, Sean, Max Granville and Yvonne Kamaju, just must-haves, and they had them.
Yeah. Had to get, when you look at them and Coleman, you had to get 2 out of the 3 of them. And as Meatloaf says, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And for the record, I thought Yvonne Kamaju was better than Chaz Coleman this year. And if you've seen the kind of money that's being thrown around with Chaz Coleman, so far not worth it. Could be someday, but I understand. We're not gonna go chasing waterfalls there. And yeah, I'm happy you mentioned Mason Robinson, and you mentioned stature, because it seems like one criticism James Franklin had was sometimes going after exceptions to rules as far as stature goes. Like if there was one trait he liked, he was willing to overlook some others. It seems like Matt Campbell's more of the school of thought that, no, you got to be this height. You got to run this, this 40 or this shuttle. And Mason Robinson fits that. Now, can he ever put it together? We're going to have to see. But I'm happy that he was coming back. I'd like to get Malachi Williams back as well. It's been pretty silent from him, but I would like.
I think he officially announced it, didn't he?
Williams?
I guess I haven't. I guess
according to the website, it says he's unannounced.
Yeah, but I thought I saw something today.
And I would take Jordan Mayer back too.
He did. Matt Zenitz announced that he will be in the portal.
Yeah, that's kind of a loss. I mean, he's still a bit of a project, but that's a young guy that I would have liked to have. I'd like to get Jordan Mayer back as well, but I don't know how.
Yeah, there's a lot that are unannounced. Jordan Mayer hasn't announced. Also, Deshaun Burnett, Enai White would be a good one. It's still, he's kind of an in-betweener still, but if he could play some DT for them, that'd be very helpful. Sean, 2 incoming folks so far at defensive end. Jackson Ford, one of 2 commits originally in the Penn State class on signing day. So shout out to him again. But then also just as of yesterday, Alex McPherson, defensive end, young guy too, with some really high kind of a lot of attention was on him already. Came from Colorado, and Penn State was able to seal that deal pretty early with Alex McPherson. Still think you got to go get a couple more maybe, but off to a good start.
Yeah, I'd like to get 1 or 2 more there for sure. Shockingly, Alex McPherson does not want to stay with the 2023 SI Sportsman of the Year, Deion Sanders out in Colorado. And he's going to be coming to Happy Valley. And I think he is somebody that could potentially start right away. It's going to be a good competition between Granville and him and Kamaju. Defensive end is, in my view, pretty similar to defensive tackle. You'd like to have 4 or 5. And right now we got 3 that we know can play. And I think if a guy like Robinson develops, a guy like Deshaun Burnett, who I liked out of high school as well, you could have something there. I know Penn State has been after, forget his first name, but Saka from Northwestern.
Anto?
Yeah, Anto Saka. Some other schools are getting involved there. Like I said, the Twitterverse says Texas A&M, and Texas A&M has real money. So we'll see how much they really want to bring him in. Penn State's going to be getting his old position coach. So maybe that helps get Penn State get a leg up. And if there's one guy, because I get the sense that this staff might be cautious to give out big money to portal guys that they're unfamiliar with. I think Anto Saka fits that mold of a guy that feel free to spend a little bit more on him, because he is a proven commodity that has some familiarity with with a part of the staff that he would be coaching him.
Yeah, I think that would just make so much sense. So I was really surprised with the whole A&M thing. Another probably not going to happen name because everyone's going to be going after him, but would be really nice. Keon Keeley just announced that he was in the portal. Former 5-star from Alabama, has 2 years of eligibility left there. Everyone and their mother is going to be going after him. And so we'll I'd pay attention to Notre Dame there, but if Penn State was able to somehow find a way, that'd be a dream come true there.
Notre Dame's been quiet in the portal, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
I feel like they've done a lot. Maybe their coach is looking other places or something. Maybe. I don't know.
All right, we made it through defensive end. I guess linebacker is going to be just as brutal, but we'll get through it as well. As far as into the portal, most notably, Amari Campbell. Said he felt undervalued. Seemed like it was a straight up money problem there. Sean Fitz, I think, summed it up pretty well today. Was he worth top dollar? Because that's what he was asking for. And can the linebackers, and we'll get to them, that Iowa State's bringing in, it's like a money ball. Like, how do you replace Jason Giambi? You recreate him in the aggregate. And that's, can you find those tackles elsewhere? Is that really what you're looking to do? Because someone's got to come up with those tackles. And yes, Amari Campbell was very important for the 2025 season. But if you had to choose, would you take Tony Rojas or Amari Campbell, Sean? Which Rojas will be returning?
It's actually a good question considering Tony Rojas's injury history. I do think Tony Rojas has, like, if Tony Rojas could stay healthy, he's going to be an NFL player for a long time. Where I don't know if Amari Campbell really translates at the next level, just because of his height. But I like Amari Campbell as a player, still do, even though he's not going to didn't really work out here. It did work out on the field last season, but as far as bringing him back, I would have liked to bring him back. But yeah, I mean, look, in the NFL, and we're moving to more and more toward an NFL model every day. Look at the players that get paid. It's quarterback, it's wide receiver, it's left tackle, it's defensive end, it's cornerback. Linebacker is not in that. Linebacker, you look at the teams that overpay for linebackers, usually, unless you have a freak on your team, those are the teams that usually struggle when you overpay for certain positions, like a linebacker, like a running back, like a safety. If you overpay for those guys, usually those deals come back to haunt you. And I think that's what the staff is looking at. Because I think you could probably tell a similar story in college football nowadays.
Cowboy Ribeye says Rojas times one. I think it's probably 1 billion. I'm not going to count all the zeros, but times a lot. So
he's on the bench, though. That's all I'm saying. I think Tony Ross is a better player than Amari Campbell, but he's got to be on the field too.
Yeah. Also departing, Anthony Specca, Zakari Nelson, which I think I chimed in on him quite a bit previously. Kari Jackson and Keon Wiley, which Keon Wiley probably needed to go somewhere else, but always had a little soft spot in my heart for Keon Wiley, and wishing him nothing but the best. Again, another guy that just couldn't quite stay healthy, but a lot of upside, and just never had a chance really to put it all together.
Yeah, I like Keon Wiley too. Played well when he got in, for what it's worth. Like, it felt like every time we saw him, he was never the problem. Even when we had our linebacker issues this year, we never could really point at Keon Wiley and say he was the issue here. And yeah, obviously Amari Campbell's going to headline that. But Penn State does have some depth coming in from Iowa State as well to negate the loss there. Also, even though he hasn't announced, wouldn't you be shocked if LeVar transferred out? So I still think, yeah, I would be shocked if LeVar went anywhere. So I'd expect to have him back too. And I hope we could get Cam Smith back, because I think he's going to be a good player for us if we're able to, Penn State's able to retain him.
Yeah, Cam Smith would be a big one. A lot of those kind of guys in that class haven't announced yet. They did flip Keon Kaiser, a linebacker coming in the 2026 class from Iowa State. And then also they are bringing 3 linebackers from Iowa State with a ton of experience. Kale Brenzina, who I personally like quite a bit. He's very versatile, can play all three linebacking positions. Cooper Abel, as well as Caleb Bacon, who was the number 4 linebacker in the transfer portal as of now. Abel and Bacon have 1 year left, and Brenzina will have 2. Shawn, you're happy but not completely satisfied with the linebacker position at this point.
I'd like to bring one more in. And it's not that I don't think these guys from Iowa State could play. It's just how good are they? Like how like what are we talking about as far as talent goes? And what their ceiling is in Big Ten play, because it's just a bit of a different world in the Big Ten and the Big 12. So am I fine with it? I'm okay. But I think I was going to say this anyway, because we lost Amari Campbell. And there's just a lot of question marks right now with how this is all going to fit together at linebacker. Also, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Alex Tash will be back. He's coming off an injury. I think I saw it was a knee injury. He's had shoulder injuries since high school as well. So he's another guy that's, if he could just stay healthy, is going to be a really, really good player for us. And I thought he played well this year.
Yeah, I think I was one of the first people to get on the Alex Tash train, so I would like all credit for that. I think you and I were very high on him when he was a recruit, if I remember correctly. Last little random note, I believe. I think so. Last little thing about running backs I just saw too that just came across my screen. Deontay Sheffy from State College. We mentioned him before, but he's officially visiting right now as well at State College. So I wanted to get that in there as well. You mentioned Tash. I don't know. We already talked about Rojas a decent amount. I think Rojas has a chance to really become a legend at Penn State. So I'm very excited for this upcoming year for him. He has a chance to solidify himself as one of the great linebackers, depending on how all eyes are going to be on him. And I hate to say it, but just like the 2025 season, a lot is going to be dictated by him staying healthy.
Yeah, no question. And I know he tweeted at one of the Cal transfers, I forget who it was off the top of my head, to get into his DMs basically. So it sounds like Tony Rojas is not done recruiting linebackers either.
Can I talk about that real quick since you brought that up?
Sure. Yeah.
That was Cal linebacker Cade Ulave.
Yep.
And as of 2:00 p.m., he entered the portal with a do not contact. So take that for what you will. Former 4-star.
Contact him.
Former 3-star, but number 1 linebacker in the portal at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and those do not contacts, so I want to talk about that for a second. Usually that means 9 times out of 10, that means they already know where they're going, but it also might mean that they don't want everybody and their mother contacting them. It's kind of in the name. So they may just be like, I'll talk to you if I'm interested in you. So it might be one of those deals as well.
Yeah. So that's the one to keep an eye on. That'd be big time. That would be big time. I would make that trade for Amari Campbell all day long.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's get to corners. And I appreciate everyone hanging out with us as we kind of get through this. Corners announcing that they're returning, which I don't know if there's a better position group returning. I don't think it's possible. Aldavian Collins, Darius Dixon, Jameer Joseph, and Zion Tracy all have announced their return. And Iowa State had a really good corner that I think just committed to Ole Miss or Mississippi. I think it was Ole Miss today. Probably one of the few position groups where you mentioned Matt Campbell was like, yeah, I don't really have space for you, or you're not going to start if you come.
Yeah, for sure. Again, who was right at the top of everybody's list that they wanted back? Darius Dixon. Probably right there with Kobe Howard. I probably would have had Dixon a little higher, as much as I love Kobe Howard, just because Darius Dixon, as many good freshman cornerbacks as we've had, really in the past 10 years, I think Darius Dixon was probably the most fundamentally sound out of all of them. And I really hope Penn State keep that Mater Dei pipeline open out in California, because, man, he came in ready, and every time he played, felt like he never made a mistake, which is unheard of for a freshman cornerback. But getting him back, getting Jameer Joseph back, which I think is going to be one of the more overlooked retainments. I really liked him too. I thought he was really impressive. Davian Collins, who's going to be a senior leader there. Same thing with Zion Tracy. I can't believe Zion Tracy's a senior already. But getting those guys back, and then I know T-Cal over at 24/7 talks all the time about how much he likes Tyrell Chapman. I think he said that's his favorite incoming freshman that Matt Campbell's bringing in with him. You're muted.
Oh, my bad. Have not heard announcements, I think officially by Tyler Armstead, but I'm pretty sure he's coming back based off what he's said on Twitter. But it's not officially changed there. I do want to talk about A.J. Harris and Elliott Washington. Elliott Washington officially went to Clemson. I think A.J. Harris is down to Indiana, Missouri, and there's another Big Ten school.
Yeah, Indiana, Missouri, I think Oregon, but I'm not positive.
Yes, it was Oregon.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
I really hope he goes to Missouri, because you just know if he goes to those other two schools, he's going to be awesome.
Yes.
I'm not even a huge A.J. Harris guy, but I know the guy, when he has it all together, can be impressive. And you just know if he goes to Cignetti, it's going to be, here he is. He's All-American now.
Yep, for sure. Kenny Wosley also entered the portal today. Kenny Wosley Jr. played a lot, actually. Kenny Wosley did early in his career as well.
I wanted to hang on to Wosley. That I consider a loss. Like, if you look around the roster, most, and this is good news, most of the guys that left, like they're either, I don't view as gigantic losses. But Wosley, I think, is one of those guys that flies under the radar a little bit, that I think ultimately is going to be a really good player somewhere else. So that one kind of stung.
All right, Shawn, we got to safety. We've done it. We've made our way around. Let's start with people that have entered the portal, which is a pretty substantial group. Antoine Belgrave Shorter, which means both him and John Mitchell out of Miami. Somewhere over there in Florida.
Somewhere like that. Yeah.
Forget exactly where now. Both didn't make it pretty much past 2 or 3 years into their career at Penn State. Braz Thomas, Day Lane announced his return. Now he's back out again. King Mack, probably one of the bigger surprises. They do lose some senior leadership here with King Mack leaving again, as well as Colin Dinkins, which, Khalil Dinkins obviously heading to the NFL. But losing Colin Dickens as well there. And then Lamont Payne, who we haven't spoke about a lot, came in technically as a corner, if I remember correctly. Hadn't played a ton, but they technically on paper lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 safeties into the portal.
Yeah, this is a position that I'd like to add some guys for sure. Penn State is bringing in Marcus Neal. I know we're going to talk about that. Corey really liked. Corey from day one said Marcus Neal, even I think before he even entered the portal. But yeah, King Mack was a bit of a surprise. Keep in mind, a lot of times these things in today's day and age do come down to money. And I don't think Matt Campbell and Derek Hoosier are in the business of overpaying just to keep guys on the roster. I think that might have been something that happened under the previous regime. And I just think you're going to see that a lot less. Could that lead to more portal losses every year? Yeah. It's just something that comes naturally when you take that more hardline approach. But long term, that's probably the best way to approach it. Because, okay, let's say we overpay for King Mac, right? Well, King Mac, even though I think he's an okay player, he could easily be passed up by some of these new guys coming in. And then the new guys coming in are getting paid less than King Mac because Matt Campbell just wanted to keep everybody happy. And then people start getting mad and pointing fingers at each other. Does that sound familiar to anybody else?
A little bit. A little bit. Yeah, I love
That's
Neil.
how it happens. And the road to, what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And sometimes if you're too loyal in today's day and age, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass.
Should just end the show there, but we got to finish this up. Jamison Patton also transferring in. He'll have just 1 year left, coming from Iowa State as well. Babu Torre played very well in the Pinstripe Bowl. He's the only currently returning safety from last year. They also bring in Bryson Williams in the 2026 class from Iowa State. He was one of the first ones that flipped as soon as Matt Campbell was hired. So that's that. Finally, no, it's not a big change to probably most people or anything that they were maybe expecting, but worth at least mentioning that Ryan Barker has officially said he's coming back. He still has 2 years of eligibility. I think that was a bigger get than people realize. He's the most accurate kicker in Penn State history right now. And getting him back is big time. They also bring in a freshman from Iowa State that flipped from Iowa State, Lucas Tenbrock as well. Those ratings are all weird. I think he's technically the number one, but I feel like every kicker is the number one kicker. So take that for what you will.
Yeah, I feel like we've had like 15 guys come in that were the number one punter or kicker. And it's like, well, which one of you is the number one? And I think the only one that we really had that was Blake Gillikin.
What was the guy? Alex Barbier was the guy I was thinking of that I think was number one, and he was rough.
That is a name. That is a poll. He played when you were there, right?
Yeah, that's why. Because he was warming up one time and he hit us with a football. He missed the net completely and the goal post and hit the stands like near, I'd say like almost diagonal. It was really bad. He shanked it, Shankopotamus.
Yeah, he was kind of the poster boy for, and I don't believe in this philosophy, by the way, but the Nick Saban school of thought. Be very careful about offering scholarships to kickers because they could end up not being very good for you. And then you're just wasting scholarship. Like I said, I don't really believe in that philosophy. I think I think kickers could win or lose you games. But that is the risk you take. But yeah, Ryan Barker coming back, man. Like you said, right now, knock on wood, most accurate kicker in Penn State history. And really, I like guys like him that kind of come up unheralded because the big guy coming in was Anderson Haydak, and he's playing golf right now, literally. Like he's a college golfer. And Ryan Barker, he took the walk-on way, walked on last year, earned a scholarship, and he's on his way to being an NFL player. And I'll never forget his interview after the USC game. I was like, yes, this is a kicker, because I think the reporter asked something along the lines of, what were you thinking when you went up to kick? And he was like, I was just thinking about the celebration after. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want, a kicker.
I just tweeted this, Sean, because I just thought of this, and I think it's one of the best things I've ever come up with. James Peoples just tweeted saying, I wanted to say I'm grateful for my time at Ohio State, blah, 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 blah. But we are. And then I just quote tweeted it, and I said, in all caps, big game James.
Oh.
We got ourselves a big game James. You like that? I think that's pretty good.
Love it. Love it.
All right. I think we did it, Sean. And I put the over-under at an hour 15, which I don't think ended up being that bad of a line.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think it's good that we grouped everybody together rather than going through the return. It just, as well as just being more organized for the listeners, I think it makes it flow smoother.
Yeah, no, that was if I don't mind me tooting my own horn 2 times in 2 minutes, it was a hell of an audible. It was a Peyton Manning level audible there, last second. All right, Shawn, we're gonna get out of here. If you've got this far, please make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening. That's really the only thing we ask for. We don't pay for anything else. If you need any graphic design help, we're at goblitz.com. It's in the bio description. Well, I did text him. I said, "Hey, we need to get a store going," and he said, "What do you have in mind?" And then I kind of dropped the ball on my side, so I got to kind of get that going again. Shawn, there was rumors that we were gonna have the Hardee's Award show later this week. Have you heard much about that?
I'm good when you are. I'm good Thursday or Friday.
Okay, I gotta see
Sunday.
I'm gonna see if I can get the Hardee's Award.
Yeah, I know people like to vote on that too. So if you want to get, we could even try to get that Sunday show.
I might try to get that out tonight. We'll see. We'll see how the rest of the evening goes. But that's Shawn Kane. I'm Cory Lestochi. You have been listening and watching to Hardcore Penn State Football. Until next time, which I'm sure a lot more will happen and a lot more is going to happen because Penn State still needs like another 30 players at least. We'll be here to help figure it out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. See you later.
Have a good night.